Sima, eh?
Back in the day, long before Isuzu or any other Kenyan dealer had anything with a turbo on their lineup that is on sale on the Kenyan market, now this one truck that actually roamed East Africa, and I don't think we will ever go better than this. And under the hood was a turbo diesel, that is a fully mechanical turbo diesel. Hapa kuko na stories za ECU, emission standards were non-existence, and remember, as I always tell you, that emission standards, stories like in Adbru and IGL basically made diesel engines unreliable. Because nobody can convince me that the idea of EGR is actually reliable. What do you mean you are taking some of the exhaust gases and taking them back to the engine? Una recirculate exhaust gases. Hiyo ni kama kuambia engine eat your own shit, Ni kama wewe ukipumua moshi. Long before we had all that, there was this one truck that actually had raw power and torque and performed so reliable and breakable with ease of maintenance. Hii sasa ilikuwa hata 1 billion engines. Hizi ni zile engine hata zikuwa more than 1.5 million. They are still running to this day, And the truck I'm talking about is actually the FUSO Fighter, and the legendary name, the FUSO Fighter. So the FUSO Fighter came around back in late 80s. Hapa ni penyewe FUSO Fighter imeingia vizuri on the Kenyan on the East African market, So the first FUSO Fighters zilikuwa zile kichwa ng'ombe, meona mahewa kichwa ng'ombe. So basically that same cabin ilikuwa kwa FUSO Fighter. That one is like the model ya huko 1989, na the only place I think you'll still find them well and active is Uganda. And surprisingly they can still import them. I don't know how, I don't know what is the age limit of trucks in Uganda, but you can still find them importing them like ex-Dubai 1989 FUSO Fighters. The most famous model of the FUSO Fighter is actually the 1994 model. That is now the cabin, ilijipata kwa mahewa at some point, and the one that had that glass door, ile blank iko na kioo. And that is the most imported model into East Africa. Basically ukienda Tanzania ziko kwa wingi sana. Kenya bado zilikuwa, and until they disappeared on the Kenyan market. But now I'm seeing some people trying to bring the FUSO Fighter back. I just hope itarudi, because I don't know why even Simba Corp hajaifikiria kuuza FUSO Fighter as brand of the Kenyan market. I've never understood. But the FUSO Fighter was a legend of a truck. So under the hood was a legendary 6D16 engine. Kuna some versions, the early versions kulikuwa na 6D14, 6D15, but the most reliable engine of the category was the legendary 6D16 engine. Basically variants of the 6D16 engines have been used on FUSO trucks until hata imekuwa kama hewa juzi. A variant of the 6D16 known as the 6D16 2AT imekuwa kwa FUSO mahewa, the FUSO FN 627 until around 2023. Bado zimekuwa on sale on the Kenyan market. I think around 2023 they have been on sale on the Kenyan market. So that's how reliable that engine was. Basically it's an engine that ran from around 1988 until 2023. It was still being manufactured brand new on the FUSO trucks. That's how reliable that engine was. Basically hata ni emission standards zimefuza 6D16 from the FUSOs. The big boss was the 6D17, but basically hata watu wako waipenda sana because the figures basically zilikuwa zinachezea around the same. So the 6D16 engine is a 7.5 liter inline 6 turbo diesel engine with a rated output of around 220 horsepower and 687 Newton meters of torque. So the earlier versions of the 6D16, kuna 6D16 ilikuwa inaitwa 6D16 1A, that basically you'll find on those kichwa ng'ombe had a rated output of around 190 horsepower and around 5 something or so 520 newton meters of torque, which was basically enough. Hizi ni figures tumeanza kuona kwa FRR in the year 2020 in the current model of the F series. Hizi numbers hatukuwa like, imagine like the FUSO Fighter had those numbers back in 1988. So the early versions came with 190 horsepower, and then what they did basically ni kama tu waliongeza size ya turbo. So you had the small turbo that had that 190 horsepower, and if you used the bigger turbo, you got the variant with the bigger turbo, you now got the 220 horsepower. Na hapa kumbuka ilikuwa raw power and torque, hakuna computers, fully mechanical engine, everything was fully mechanical. So I don't know even how they used to tune these engines. Juu hapa hakuna story ya ECU. Basically it was raw tuning. If you want more power, go for a bigger turbo. Jua venye uta balance mafuta venye diesel inapampiwa, like the amount of diesel you're getting the engine and the amount of air that is getting the engine by using a bigger turbo. So yeah, it was basically raw power and torque. So the biggest engine on that track was the 6D17. Basically ilikuwa the 6D17 was an 8.2 liter inline 6 turbo diesel engine with a rated output of around 210 horsepower and around 490 newton meters of torque. It's surprising that the 6D16 with a bigger turbo actually can produce more torque than the 6D17. The 6D17 was never like so popular. Most people stuck with the 6D16 and they are well available. Hizo engines zinapatikananga kila mahali. They are still being imported, like spare parts are already available for the 6D16. And one thing that people discovered early on the 6D16 is that with that power and torque you could actually do tandem kind of lineup na ubeba more weight on the track. So that is basically what happened. So when the guys got the FUSO Fighter, that is a 1994 model, with the 6D16 big turbo, that is 220 horsepower and around 680 newton meters of torque, they quickly discovered that you had enough power to hold 18 tons. So what happened is that now the modification tandem came into action. That is basically what still happens in Tanzania up to this very day. So you basically import a FUSO Fighter 6-wheeler, lengthen the chassis and install a boogie kind of suspension. Ile boogie. The boogie kind of suspension, ile suspension inatumia leaf spring moja but ni 10-wheeler, that tandem. Basically kwa lugha ya mtaani double diff. So what happened is that the FUSO Fighter, the guys started modifying them with the double diff. So basically you get this truck for so cheap as compared to buying a new 10-wheeler. And especially because the FUSO Fighter was never meant to be an off-road truck. Hii ni gari ya lami. That's why even the tires are not that big as compared to the Mahewa. So guys just take them, import one from Dubai, back in Tanzania. Huko Tanzania, they are still being imported to this day. Sijui hata huko age limit ni nini. These two countries surprise me. The fact that they are still importing trucks from 1990s. Easy hata sijui wana manage aje kuimport hizo mitumba. So they import them and modify them into 10-wheelers. And that is how the FUSO tandem, FUSO tandem hiyo jina ya Tanzania ilitokea hapo. So that modification was actually copied from the Indians. So huko Pakistan, these guys never believe that ile manufacturer straight rating ya truck ndio truck inafaa kubeba. So what they actually do, they have this tendency of adding a lot of axles to bear the weight to the wheels. So I don't know how the movement got to Tanzania. Maybe one Indian guy alianza kumodify. So Tanzanians became so skilled in that. Actually they are the best to do it. Kuna watu wanafanya huku Kenya. Sasa ndio naona hata like guys like Jomitech are trying to do boogie suspension modifications because several have been made that are so poor. They are nothing compared to the Tanzanian ones, and Ugandans are also expert in that. So I don't know how. But one of the reasons is that CC already we can get the 10-wheelers. We are better off economically, baby. We can get the 10-wheelers directly from the showroom, so we don't need to modify them ourselves. So the FUSO Fighter is still in production. Basically, it has the same cabin as the new Mahewa. Your new Mahewa is actually a FUSO Fighter in disguise. Basically, what happens is that we have the FUSO Fighter X. that is now the truck yenye iko like an on-road use truck, and now the truck that can actually handle off-road use ni the FUSO FN. So basically ukienda other markets such as Thailand and Asian markets, you'll find the mahewa hii tuita mahewa iko imeandikwa FUSO Fighter. It is called FUSO Fighter something. I'm not quite sure it is FUSO Fighter something. I think it is just FUSO Fighter FN. And now the FUSO Fighter, the original FUSO Fighter is known as the FUSO Fighter X, the current model. So hiyo cabin tu naona kwa the new mahewa is actually the cabin being used on the FUSO Fighter. It is still not being sold as brand new in the Kenyan market. So basically hapa kuna watu wanaleta mitumba and they are not quite cheap. I wouldn't say they are cheap hizo mitumba. So utapata the FUSO Fighter inachezea around 5.5 million hizo mitumba zake. The current FUSO Fighter comes with the same engines that you will find on the new mahewa. I'm talking about the 6M60 engine, that is a 7.5 liter turbo diesel engine, inline 6, that is Euro 4, that has a rated output of around 270 horsepower, and listen to this, 800 Newton meters of torque. Yeah. So basically, the FUSO Fighter 6-wheeler, imagine inakujanga na the same engine that you'll find on the 10-wheeler mahewa. That is how powerful that truck is. The only difference I think is the gearbox and the rear gearing on the differential, but the engine is basically the same. That is the same case that happens when you buy a FUSO FN62 6-wheeler. It will come with the same engine that you have on the 10-wheeler. So it basically on the 6-wheeler is so powerful, juu hiyo nguvu yote uko nao tu for carrying like a GVM of 18 tons, but the same engine can be used to carry a GVM at 26 tons. So you can imagine how powerful the FUSO Fighter is. So FUSO Fighter purists bado wanaipenda. The other engine available on the FUSO Fighter is the 4M50. Basically kuna ka 4-cylinder. Remember, everyone is downsizing their engines because of the emission standards, like, and it has become so strict that one of the easiest ways to do that is actually downsize and make sure that your downsized engine, you put a bigger turbo and it runs more efficiently in terms of like ile uchafu inatoka kwa exhaust. So the 4M50 is a 4.9 liter engine that has a rated output of 180 horsepower and 580 Newton meters of torque. So see chacha hata ukisikia ni 4-cylinder, but basically it is not common. You won't find it on the Kenyan market unless you get the FUSO Fighter X, your Mutumba version. So the FUSO Fighter X, your Mutumba, you can still get them. They are available. Kuna watu wanazi-import, nimeziona zikiuzwa. Sasa hapo nipige hesabu zako, you look at what if I get a local version ya kitu kama FRR, what if I go for the FAW JK6, what if I go for the whole H3, is it feasible? But kuna watu wanapenda tu jina FUSO Fighter, wanapenda FUSO Fighter because of the old FUSO Fighter, so they might actually end up still buying it at that price. So what about value for money on the FUSO Fighter? What if you are going to get the current FUSO Fighter? Is there any value for money? Of course, at that price, I am also not like recommending it a lot because at 5.5 million to 6 million shillings for a second-hand truck, hiyo ni kama bei actually you have the whole H3 brand new, you have the FAW JK6, na pia hapa ni kidogo tu ni kama unaelekea kushika FRR. There are a lot of options basically at that price, so I wouldn't say sasa hapa ni story na purist. So if you are purist and you like just the FUSO Fighter, this could be the track for him. What I wish is that there could be exceptions on the age limit of some of these tracks, because Kenyan investors can never compete with those guys from TZ. Imagine hizo vitu wanaziokotanga huko Dubai ni kama like those are very good tracks. So a FUSO Fighter from the 1990s in Dubai basically maybe wanaiokota na maybe 1-2 million shillings. Na hiyo kitu inakuja, those things are very well maintained huko. 6D16 turbo is basically a very bulletproof engine, meaning that with proper service, even after that years, it will still be running good and properly. So, so but I understand that one of the reasons that such things were actually banned on the Kenyan market in juu ya kufavor the local assemblers. The local assemblers wamekuwa kilia sana, so ikabidi serikali inyonge hiyo like no competition, because if those things were ever sold second hand or ever allowed to get into this market, a lot of manufacturers would have closed shop long. Wacha hivyo nawaambianga wa China wamewatoa kwa soko, watu wangetolewa kwa soko kitambo na FUSO Fighter. Hata ingeweka. but in a bit to protect them. So that is what basically happened. But comment hapo kwa comment section, like if it were you, how would you like if it was up to you, would you recommend that the FUSO Fighter be allowed into the Kenyan market, hizo mitumba za kitambo, those ones that are more than 8 years old, because they are way cheap and way reliable. Yeah, so anzeni conversation hapo kwa comment section. Yeah.